The White House released a memo on August 11th of last year for developing effective place-based policies and calls for a better way to track where proposed federal funding is going geographically, how this funding overlaps across agencies, and how local communities can leverage this funding to become more sustainable. As you can see from these statistics, the Galveston area has suffered $1.18 billion in total losses since 1960. $950 million of which was from hurricanes and tropical storms, which offers great potential for federal agencies to collaborate. Today I'll be using a web application developed by NOAA and HUD to first identify areas in which these agencies could collaborate, and second, to evaluate a proposed low-income housing development. So I'll begin by turning on proposed funding by agency. And I can see detailed information about each of these proposed projects, such as HUD proposing $260,000 to modernize public housing. Continuing on, I'll turn on proposed funding for the EPA, the Department of Labor, the Department of Interior down here on Galveston Island, as well as the DOJ and NOAA, who's proposing $5 million to restore about 328 acres of wetland habitat. And then finally, the FHA and the Maritime Administration. At this point, I'm going to use the map to report exactly what I want to see, which are the projects, or the proposed funding on Galveston Island. The report shows me the cross-section of agencies that are proposing funding in this area, and I can see that there's a great potential for these agencies to compound their investments. The final point of the memo, however, was to enable local communities to use this funding to become more sustainable, which this grant from HUD could do by providing low-income housing, for example. So at this point, I'm going to use the application as a decision support system to investigate a proposed low-income housing development. To do that, I'll simply search for the proposed project, and I'll begin by looking at the vulnerabilities to the area. We just saw that a number of hurricanes have hit this area, so I can use model results from NOAA to see the impacts of a Category 5 hurricane storm surge. Climate change is also something that we're interested in, and I can see the impacts of 6 feet of sea level rise on the area. In this case, we're still safe. And finally, the locations of contaminants as well as leaking underground storage tanks have been reported, which I'll want to ensure that I locate the housing development away from. Moving on, the application shows me block group demographic statistics, such as the average income for the block group we're proposing, the percentage of population over 65, and the percentage living in poverty. And finally, I want to look at the resilience of the area, which is a measure of how quickly and how well a community can recover after a natural disaster, such as a hurricane. Community infrastructure, such as places of worship, schools, libraries, police stations, and fire stations, have been found to be good indicators of a community's sustainability. At this point, I want to use all this information that we've just seen to help me understand whether or not this location is a good area to site our new proposed low-income housing. To do that, I've created a model that takes the inputs, runs them through a series of processes to determine a final desirability index. The model also allows me to weight each of the inputs based on their importance. So as the model runs, it takes those inputs, weights them, and runs them through the processes to compute this desirability surface, and in which areas in green are those best suited for the type of low-income housing project that I'm proposing. So recalling that we were able to see exactly which agencies are proposing funding in the area, the grant from HUD is just one of those that could multiply the positive impacts on this community. So what you've just seen is a prototype for place-based budgeting that takes us beyond simply tracking where money's been spent using points and allows us to track where funding is being proposed by detailed project delineations, and also provides a decision support system for local communities to be able to evaluate and plan projects to best suit their needs. Thank you.